Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Timmy Johnson, and you're listening to MMALatestNews.com.
It's time to roll, baby.
Hello and welcome back to MMA Latest News. My name is James Sweetman. We've got an absolutely terrific show coming up for you all today. We're going to be talking the return, maybe, for Nick Diaz against Jorge Masvidal. We're going to be talking Tyson Fury transitioning over to the world of mixed martial arts to take on heavyweight king Stipe Miocic. A potential battle between Australia and England at the O2 Arena between Robert Whittaker and Darren Till. And, of course, a little preview of UFC Sao Paulo. But let's kick off with Nick Diaz. One of the most popular stars the sport has ever seen, one of the original gangsters of the game. In recent times, he, of course, always was the big brother to Nate Diaz, and that sort of role's reversed a bit. Nate Diaz has emerged out of the shadow of Nick Diaz and become a real superstar in his own right, but people remember Nick for what he was, a real gangster, a man who fought the likes of George St. Pierre, a man who's been in absolute wars, and after a fight against Anderson Silva, tested positive for marijuana and was banned for 4 years, which in my opinion was more than excessive. It's kept him out the cage for a very long time, and there's been rumours about a potential return for quite a while now, but do I think this should happen? No, I absolutely do not. In an interview that was conducted last night, Nick Diaz didn't seem himself. I mean, he was never great at stringing a sentence together, but he's coming across as punch drunk as you could possibly be. He's saying that he's not particularly happy with how his life is going. He looks slightly overweight as well. He doesn't look in great shape. And if he is to come back to the sport, this isn't boxing. He's not going to get an easy fight. He's going to get flung straight back in with the likes of a Jorge Masvidal. A fight that at this stage would be far too tough for him, in my opinion. Jorge's just beaten Nate. And there is that element of Nick being the older brother, wanting to step in, wanting to beat Jorge and avenge his brother's loss. But at this stage of the game, I just can't see him doing that. Nick Diaz is an absolute legend, and for me, he has absolutely nothing to prove in this spot. I don't see him becoming a world champion anytime soon, so I'd like to see Nick Diaz ideally remain retired because there's nothing more for him to achieve, and a fight against Jorge Masvidal will only be bad news. As for what he can do himself, I know he likes staying fit, I know he does triathlons, but the shape that he's in at the moment I don't think is ideal, and if he's struggling with his mental health and all that sort of stuff, he needs to think about sorting that out, and potentially going back into the world of combat sports will be the wrong thing to do. Now let's talk about Tyson Fury, one of boxing's most famous men, the most charismatic man, potentially in all of sports, the Gypsy King. After his rematch with Deontay Wilder was temporarily called off due to the fact that he received a horrific cut in an absolute war of Otto Wallen. He took to the world of WWE. He's been fighting Braun Strowman, and people who say Tyson Fury can't punch, they've been proven wrong, because I saw Tyson knock out multiple bouncers in his stint in WWE. He beat Braun Strowman in Saudi Arabia in front of 100,000 people live. His profile has massively blown out the water. Over 3 million people watching him every single time he appeared on SmackDown, and he's become a real household name in the United States. Now he's transitioning to martial arts. He's been training down at the Crunch Gym with Darren Till. And he looks good, you know. He is a world-class athlete, but even still, Tyson Fury should stick to boxing, stick to what he knows. I'm not a huge fan of these crossover battles. I think if you're a boxer, you should stay a boxer. If you're an MMA fighter, you should stick in MMA. I mean, Conor McGregor couldn't cross over to boxing. And then, obviously, James Toney couldn't cross over to MMA. It's tough. They are completely different sports. It's the same as like a world-class tennis player beating the badminton world champion. They are levels apart in that sort of regard. If Tyson does want to get into MMA, then I would suggest Bellator, not the UFC. He can build himself up slowly and surely. We've seen people who have far less credentials, like, so, you know, James Haskell, Aaron Chalmers, build themselves up in that brand. So if Tyson wants to do that, I'm sure Bellator would throw a hell of a lot of money at him. They're desperate to break into the UK market. You could headline with Tyson Fury in Manchester extremely easily, but he needs to stay away from the UFC for me for now. But a man who has called him out is Stipe Miocic, the current heavyweight king. And Stipe, a very good boxer in his own right, a Golden Gloves champion. And on paper, people think it's going to be a stand-up battle. It'd be entertaining, but ultimately it wouldn't. Stipe Miocic, an NCAA champion, he'd probably take the Gypsy King down quite easily. The Gypsy King, an unbelievable boxer, one of the greatest of our generation, but that is the sport he is good at. And I know Francis Ngannou's called him out as well. And I remember he had a bit of beef back in the day with Cain Velasquez when Tyson Fury called him out, I think when he was only just the British champion. But Tyson Fury knows how to sell himself. He knows how to make himself a household name. He's done it in boxing. He's done it in wrestling. He says he doesn't want to fight in the UK anymore because the US make him a superstar, and I think that's fair enough for Tyson. The British fans never sort of warned to him in the way they should have done when he was beating Klitschko. They warned to him slightly more after his whole journey with depression, but I think the Americans warned to him right off the bat, so I understand why he wants to continue fighting over there. Now, a potential fight that could be coming to UFC London is Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till. And Darren Till, I've never known how to take him, for example. I know he's been very cocky in his run in the UFC. But since his losses, to Tyron Woodley and Jorge Masvidal, he admitted in the lead-up to the to the Kelvin Gastelum fight that there was every single chance in the world he could lose. Kelvin Gastelum, an absolute monster puncher, a huge left hand, and Darren Till knew the risk going into it. He fought the best he ever has done. Against Jorge Masvidal, against Tyron Woodley, he was too on the front foot to me. He was thinking more about his work against Gastelum. Obviously, going to be cautious because he was coming off a huge knockout where he was out cold for quite a while. But I think it couldn't have done better things for him. He talked about his demons, and I have a lot of respect for that. He was saying that he was absolutely terrified to get in the cage. He was thinking about faking an injury, which is an emotion a lot of fighters go through, but most of them aren't honest enough to talk about it, and that's just how it is. Darren Till, an extremely honest man, and he's won me over with that. Could he take on Robert Whittaker at London? Yes, he absolutely could. Robert Whittaker obviously coming off a loss. You've got the whole Australian-England rivalry. It'd be a huge fight at the O2 Arena. Bobby Knuckles, a very, very likeable character. He needs a big win. He had those two absolute wars with Jorge Masvidal, and you've got to wonder, as good as he was in those fights, how much have they taken away from him? Because he didn't seem quite as able to take a punch against Israel Adesanya. I didn't feel he fought brilliantly. He was far too much on the front foot. He was loading up far too much on every punch, every kick. I know he's got energy for days, but you're going to leave yourself wide open. You're fighting a world kickboxing champion, as Stylebender is. So Robert Whittaker didn't look great last time out, but he's still a world-class athlete. And a fight against Darren Till, if he can get a victory, will be absolutely perfect for him. And there's no guarantee Israel Adesanya would win his next out, and he's fighting, I think, Yoel Romero next time out because Paulo Costa is injured. If Romero just shoots, takes him down, there's every chance Yoel Romero becomes the world champion. And then maybe you've got the trilogy between Romero and Whittaker, which I think so many people would like to see. But Darren Till will be going back to London. He'd be the favourite. I think he's always been a middleweight. He was too drained at 170 pounds. Now he can fight to the best of his ability. And he'll have a point to prove if he's going to London. Of course, he was knocked out cold badly there last time. Will the demons affect him? Or will now he's embraced them and he's overcome it? Will he be able to get over that? Certainly an interesting fight, and it's one that I'd love to see. Anyway, this weekend, UFC Sao Paulo, we've got an absolutely cracking main event in the light heavyweight division. Jacare Souza takes on Jan Blachowicz, and you have to feel that the winner of this could well get a UFC title shot against John Jones. Blachowicz basically would have got one if he'd have beaten Thiago Santos. He lost that fight, but he came back and knocked out Luke Rockhold in extremely devastating fashion. Jacare also coming off a devastating knockout win when he defeated Chris Weidman. Now, the last two middleweights who've moved up to light heavy, Weidman and Rockhold, it's ended absolutely horrifically for them. Jacare will be looking to turn that all around with a victory this weekend. Jan Blachowicz hits extremely hard, and for me, he has to be the favourite. Jacare has been absolutely desperate for a UFC world title shot. He's more than deserved it, but unfortunately, he's just lost those key matchups which have prevented him from getting one. I think Jan Blachowicz wins. I think he wins by knockout, but you can never underrate Jacare Souza, who is so good on the ground. Anyway, that's all we have time for on MMA latest news today. Stephen Halson will be providing videos all week long as he is in Bahrain covering everything the IMF, and we'll be back this time next week. Thank you. See you later.